A very good morning to everyone present here, and welcome to this episode of the podcast only on channel Sanskriti. So, today we're going to be discussing about a certain book that was a bit of a phenomenon when it first came out and still is to this very date. It contains everything from unexpected twists and turns to historical marvels, and of course, a teeny tiny bit of controversy. And the book in question is The Da Vinci Code, written by famous author Dan Brown. So, to kick off this session, I would like to ask a question to my friend Akshat. So, Akshat, tell me, in general, what is it that you like about this book?
Oh, I loved all of the book. Um, the Dan Brown's writing in the book has been marvelous. His descriptions and his um, comical jokes have really stuck out to my adolescent brain. His description of a certain place in France is fun and memorable for all the young readers who will be out there reading that book. Apart from that, on a serious note, I'd say his entire writing of the plot, the perfect chronology, the adequate pauses between climaxes, and the spacing out of the action plots in the story have led me to forget that we are doing this, that the entire story has taken place in just the span of one day and one night, and it has also created a sense of urgency. He has made the characters unfold particularly well in the span of these few hours. And I think it really ties all of the book together.
I agree. The characters Brown introduced were really believable. Also, the amount of research he has done for the plot is really admirable. It really takes the plot to another level. Now, I would like to ask my friends what was their favorite aspect of the book?
So, personally, for me, I think it was how we incorporated such diverse topics such as history, symbology, cryptology, art, etc., into one book that was very well written. So, personally, being a little bit of a history enthusiast, the way he incorporated the history of art, specifically Da Vinci, and the history of religion, so many legends that surround Christianity, etc., etc., and how we incorporated certain puzzles. So we got to see the Mona Lisa, the Fibonacci sequence, etc., etc. I think that was really, really amazing. And plus, as Akshat said, the pacing of the plot was very commendable. To be able to put such action filled moments, but also put the perfect amount of fillers in between, I think it was done spectacularly.
I agree. Dan Brown kept me captivated throughout the book. His research suppositions on the topic of the Templars, the Vaticans, the Catholics made me explore them outside the book. I even searched each of the Da Vinci's paintings mentioned to check on the details. I like the inclusion of the historical figures like Isaac Newton as a previous grandmaster. I like the new outlook on the legend of Holy Grail.
Okay, so now that we've had quite a discussion about what we enjoyed or liked, I'm a bit curious about what you guys think could have been done differently. Or if you guys were to write this book, what do you think could have been done slightly better?
So I believe that Dan Brown has succeeded in creating a very dark and eerie atmosphere in the beginning of the book, and in the latter part of the book, the plot just what can I say? It just breaks apart, and it doesn't contain that dark and eerie atmosphere, which was very characteristic of the book, and it just sadly it just turns it into another thriller book which doesn't contain that much thrill. And I believe if it hadn't been for the way the mysteries were unraveling, it would have been a very average book. So I would have felt that if there was uh, the atmosphere that is built around the book, if that was a bit more worked upon, it could have been much better.
I would have liked Silas, who is the secondary antagonist of the book, to have had a less tragic ending. He doesn't know what he's doing is wrong. He thinks whatever he's doing is for the work of the god, and he's working for the god, and he doesn't know what he's doing is wrong. He shoots Father Aringarosa and then leads a terrible death. I wish he got a better part in the book at the end. I would like to ask you all, what according to you guys didn't fit the magnificent plot of the book?
I'd say Teabing's character, as a renowned expert of the arts, and he has dedicated his entire life to unraveling or finding the story behind the Prairie of Sion and the Templar Knights. His betrayal at the end felt a little forced. Um, his maniacal ego definitely did play a certain part, but then I feel it could have been written better, as Dan Brown's writing on other parts of the story, such as the other characters, has been absolutely fabulous. And in Teaming, we got to see much of the bad and good rather than a combination or an amalgamation of both.
Yes, quite true. I agree with that. Teabing, as we saw in the book, is a bit of a mastermind in his own right. He is a award-winning historian, in fact, so prestigious that he literally won a knighthood from the then Queen of Britain. And just, getting a loose screw towards the end of the book doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I think while Dan Brown has stated that he does not like to repeat any secondary characters in his books, I still think that Tewin could have had a better ending and maybe come as a recurring villain in a following book.
On the topic of how we would have liked certain characters to play out, I'd ask you all, if you were to add your own spin to the story, how would you have phrased the ending, or how would you have better developed the story towards the end?
I feel another way of ending the book could have been that when the second cryptix was under Teabing's care, it breaks and the papyrus inside gets destroyed. So Langdon and Sophie never get to discover the final clue, and Sophie never gets to meet her family. But years later, Sophie, maybe on a trip to Roslyn, meets her family again, and with the help of her grandma, she uncovers the truth of the Holy Grail.
Personally, for me, I think the ending was quite satisfactory. I think it brought together the entire story pretty well. And the moment where he finally realizes where Mary Magdalene's bones are, where her tomb is, I think it was very, I think it quite brought goosebumps to me. And I think it was a really good ending, personally.
I'd agree. Mary Magdalene's revelation to be kept under the Louvre really tied the story back, and it brought it all in a big circle. It really proves how certain characters with proper knowledge for over 20 years have failed to achieve what Langdon and Sophie could do in the span of just one day. As you said, it certainly does give me goosebumps as well.
So, going away from the topic of the book, there was a movie made on this book starring Tom Hanks. Has anyone seen it?
Yep.
Yeah, so not a lot of you. I would personally always prefer the book to the movie, but if you had a choice, who would you prefer to play Robert Langdon in the movie?
I'd say Paul Rudd fits the character particularly well. His acting in Ant-Man as a comical genius and somewhat of a quantum scholar himself has really put this image in my mind of him being particularly apt for the character of a art historian. And he has a nice build as well, certainly comparable to Langdon. I'd like to ask Agni, what or who would you like to cast as Robert Langdon in the movie?
I actually quite liked Tom Hanks for his role in the movie, but I thought that his acting style lacked a little bit of that, simple yet humorous tones to it that really makes the character of Robert Langdon who he is. So I think a really perfect casting choice for Robert Langdon in the movie would have been the British actor Benedict Cumberbatch. He did roles like Sherlock Holmes in the hit TV show Sherlock, and also as Doctor Strange in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And as we all might have seen in these TV shows and movies, he plays smart characters, ones who could be quite serious at times, who solve their problems using creative ways. But on the same hand, he could be extremely witty and clever. He could like crack one-liners and things that lighten the mood and the tension. So I think that would have been a pretty nice casting choice.
Um, I think it sums it all for today. I really love the podcast. I love the book, and I'm sure I love the movie with or without Tom Hanks. I'd like to take this opportunity to mention to all the young readers out there watching this podcast that please go out and read. Read books like Dan Brown if they are suitable for your age, and discuss and have a healthy conversation amongst your peers. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the school and Mega Ma'am for giving us this platform to share our views. I'm sure some of us, Divij, haven't heard of the book before this podcast. A very hearty congratulations to all those who stayed with Langdon for the end of the book, and thank you.